Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Road Deck Chronicles. I am Dean, and once again, I have Devin with me.
Hey everybody, hopefully everyone had a good weekend and hopefully they got to enjoy the Atlanta Regional. I really don't know. This was a big event that happened, and then obviously not the only thing that happened in Georgia this weekend. I was watching the other big event in Georgia this weekend.
Yeah. So yeah, Atlanta Regional happened this weekend, and we'll go into that a little bit into the episode. But first, just a little announcement. So first of all, thank you for everyone that has been supporting us either by watching our videos or listening to this podcast. And with that, we kind of want to put a little challenge up there to help with our content, with our channel. So if we hit 100 subscribers on the YouTube channel, so if you watch us on YouTube, you're already there. Hopefully you're already subscribed. Now, please do. But if you listen to the podcast in another format, feel free to watch our YouTube content, subscribe, and once we hit 100 subscribers, we are going to do a special live stream of some of the decks that we feature on this podcast. We will do a road deck of champions tournament. So we're going to grab some decks that we feature on here. We either will do the evolutions and do that format, or we may do some of the journey togethers. That's something that we're going to talk internally about. But we will do a tournament of champions with some of my friends, and we will just feature these decks via tabletop live stream. And yeah, just want to create more content for y'all. Figure it'll be fun to do this little goal as well. So yeah, we're excited for that. It's something that Devin and I talked about. Devin, you want to add anything to this announcement?
No, I'll just say really, if I know we've been pushing the YouTube channel a lot lately, it's been just something that we're both comfortable with. It's something where we're able to do the deck of the weeks. I think that's why we've really been shifting to the YouTube, is showing off those rogue deck of the weeks, and we've been seeing how much you guys have been enjoying both of the podcast weeklies along with those supplementary videos. So definitely come by to the YouTube side. Just give us a sub, like the videos, comment. We do engage at every single comment right now. That way we can always try to grow and just try to get more ideas out there. I know last week we had someone talk about back and forth. It was a little stream in the comments of the Lycanroc video of different takes on Lycanroc. So we do engage conversations that way, because deck building is an art, not a science. So it's always fun to see other people's ideas.
Absolutely. So please feel free to engage with us. As we said, we do comment as quickly as we can. It is only run by the two of us, so we're very busy depending on the time of year and all that, but we do respond as quickly as we can. And yeah, we're excited to do this special live stream. Hopefully this is something that that will happen fairly soon. So, but it's up to you all. Like our video, subscribe to our channel, and as soon as we hit 100 subscribers, we'll get a date on the board for that live stream, and we'll let you all know.
Yeah. So with that some of the housekeeping stuff out of the way, Dean, I want to bring up something that was a little controversial prior to Atlanta. It got a lot of people talking for all the wrong reasons, I think, and that's a update to a ban list in one of the formats.
Yeah, so for those who are not really in the loop with stuff outside of standard, there's other formats that Pokemon pushes. Standard is the main one that they really want to focus on, but there is a fan-made format out there that a lot of people have gravitated towards, and that's called Gym Leader Challenge, or you may, for the conversation forward, we're going to say GLC for short. But yeah, it is a fan-made format made by a YouTube content creator in the Pokemon TCG realm, and it just, as soon as it got released, it hit the ground running. You'll see it at regionals now. There's actually some other content creators that just focus primarily on GLC formats. So it is a very common way, other way of playing this game. And what you're referring to is a new ban to really the primary to the colorless decks, but really to any deck, is that
Mhm.
now in GLC you cannot play twin energy and double colorless energy in your decks.
Yeah, and I know there was some discourse in your local shops about it. And the more you and I were talking about it, obviously, Andrew Mahone, he wrote a very good article explaining the ban, explaining the logic to it. It's very, very reminiscent into how in the Magic community, the how Commander or EDH is kind of managed with a separate, like away from Pokemon, and in case of Magic, away from Wizards of the Coast, like a little
Mhm.
subcommittee that evaluates the health of the game. And Andrew even said in his article he really tries not to intervene until he feels like this is a point where the health of the format matters. And really, when you look at the list, there's 11 total cards on the list. These are the first energies on the list. But all the other cards on the list were definitely banned. And I can see why. Like, there's some of those cards on here just, they break the spirit of the format, with it being a
Mhm.
singleton, supposed to be a little slower format. And there's just too many things that could happen from that. So I can see why both these cards were banned, and it affects one. They're both colorless energies, but it affects all energy types, all typing of decks, because any deck could have ran these two cards.
Yeah, and I actually listened to an interview with him as well, further explaining some reasons why he did this. First of all, the reason why he picked these energies versus the other cards that take advantage of these energies is one, he didn't want to. He tried not to ban specific Pokemon cards, like actual Pokemon, because it may be someone's favorite Pokemon, and he doesn't want to take that away because he realizes that is a reason why people play decks. Is like, oh, I'm gonna play. I think a good example would be Snorlax. Snorlax is my favorite Pokemon. I love this format. I want to build a deck that plays Snorlax. So I want to play colorless, and he understands that is a reason why people play decks. It's not just, oh, I'm trying to pick the most competitive deck, or I'm trying to pick whatever XYZ reason deck. Favorite Pokemon is a legit reason. So he stays away from Pokemon, and similarly, he tries to stay away from characters for the same reason. Like, oh, I like Inigo and Emmett. Oh, I like Cynthia. Or I like name a certain character in a video game. He tries to stay away from that unless he has to. Obviously, there are supporter cards that are banned in GLC, but he tries to stay away as much as possible for fairness and also a way to encourage people to play the game as well for
Mm-hmm.
that same reason. And obviously, you can't prevent everything. He in his interview that he had, he did say, "I look at the format and I try to be so precise, like a surgeon does, and I try to figure out what is the root cause and what is the main problem, not just the cards that take advantage of the problem." And it's like it's easier to get rid of the problem than to make people unhappy because they can't play their favorite Pokemon anymore or their favorite supporter anymore.
Yeah, like when the ban Forest of Giant Plants came up, it was an issue because of the Vileplume. It was paired up with very different types of Vileplume that caused issues. And the Vileplume is a symptom of the problem, but the problem was the fact you could get that Vileplume turn one. And
Mm-hmm.
Forms of Giant Plants definitely breaks that rule. And it's like, all right, that defeats the purpose of a singleton format where you kind of have to be very strategic on how you play your deck. Um, Let Loose Marshadow was another really good ban. I thought was fair. Honestly, when I was building my Psychic deck, when in 2022, and I'm like, oh, I could use Let Loose Marshadow. This is busted. Like, I'm surprised it wasn't on an initial ban list. It felt bad.
Yeah.
You and I played when I let loose Marshadow to you, and I'm like, I can keep on going, and I completely derailed you. It's a very broken card, and
Yeah, I was actually talking to Joe about that too because he has a similar psychic spread deck. Hi, Joe, by the way. And he was like, "Yeah, my deck is." he hasn't touched his deck since the ban. He's like, yeah, I just have to take that card out. He just hasn't.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, it broke the format. So with that being said, the reason why these two cards, Double Colorless and Twin Energy, are being banned is that the main reason is that it defeats the spirit of the format in the sense that with Twin Energy, as it reads, it provides a double colorless energy to Pokemon that do not have a rule box. Well, that's all GLC is.
Yeah.
So essentially, it's a double colorless energy, and then double colorless is just two colorless energies. So having those two cards alongside of double turbo energy, which is just double colorless with minus 20 attack, it defeats having a singleton format where three cards are essentially the same thing. Maybe double turbo is the less of the similarities because it has that nerf in the attack costs. So that's why it's allowed, because that nerf is making it balanced enough to let it stay in, versus having two other cards that can do the same thing, and you can play essentially three of the same cards in your deck but not really. So he wants to get away from that. I was like, no, that's not fair. And there's certain cards that take advantage of that, because two energy attachments, you can attack and you can attack hard.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense. I mean, it definitely does slow down colorless just in general, but also slows down other archetypes that have some very heavy colorless attack costs in their colored attack. I know it's going to be an adjustment, but if you look at the history of the ban list, like we were going over this before we started, and I go, the first bans were in 2021, and they come more or less every 6 months. So like every 6 months, they reevaluate the health of the format, and it's one of those situations where I understand if you play colorless, you play a deck that really utilizes this colorless attack buff, that it's going to be a little frustrating. But at the end of the day, you have to kind of see the bigger picture, and that's exactly what Andrew did. Is he looked at the bigger picture of the format for the health of the game, and he went, you know what, this isn't good for the long-term format. And honestly, this format doesn't have rotation, so a banned restricted list is really good to kind of shift metas every once in a while. That way, it's again keeping the health of the format good, but also allowing players to reevaluate how certain archetypes are played.
Exactly, and as people know, Mahone, he is part of a local card shop in Ohio, Full Grip Games, and they actually already enacted their their ban lists at their last GLC night, and they stream their GLC every week. So if you're interested in seeing some really good Gym Leader Challenge gameplay, find Tricky Gym's YouTube. I know we don't really promote a lot of channels, but he is a great person for the community, and he streams really great content. And if this is a format you're interested in, every Thursday night he streams it, he talks about it, and you can go back to the latest Thursday night, and you can see how there was already a shift in the meta, and how people went and interpret how they play going forward. And colorless isn't dead. A lot of the critiques was, oh, you just make colorless so much worse. But with Journey Together, there's a lot of colorless Pokemon.
Colorless got really strong.
So this ban did not change that. You're changing how you're playing for sure, don't get me wrong. But that Hops Cramorant, that Hops Snorlax is way overpowered, and it takes nothing to set them up. You have the Hops Choice ban, you have the Potswick in there. Like, it just added more to where, okay, you ban DCE, you ban Twin Energy. Whoopie-doo, I can attack my Cramorant, do 180 damage for 1 energy.
Yeah.
Beat that. So
yeah, and
it changed how people play, but I think colorless is still a menace.
Yeah, colorless definitely got less aggressive in terms of aggro, energy acceleration aggro. It's still super aggressive color typing. Like, you can still hit fairly quickly, fairly hard. It's still going to have the aggressive mentality. It's not a mid to late game color or archetype, really. But all because it takes you one more turn to power up doesn't mean it's dead. And we see that, and we're going to talk about that when it comes to Atlanta in a minute. All because there was a change doesn't mean the world is ending for an archetype. It just means you have to sit down and reevaluate how you play the deck. And the ban came at a perfect time where a new set was introduced with the ban. So it was one of those. I think he picked the timing very well. I mean, Andrew Mahone's very good ambassador of the game. Um, and he knows what is a good time to do certain decisions, and this just shows how close he is to the pulse of the game, where he goes, you know what, we're going to enact this effective April 24th, just a week or so after Journey Together is a standard legal, and now everyone's had an opportunity to hopefully get pieces to what they need for their new decks to update their types. And I really say the resources for GLC are phenomenal. I built a GLC deck from scratch using just the website.
I've done the same thing. I follow. I'll watch their streams once in a while, and I'll see them posting the list. And there's, like I said, there's several other content creators that just focus on GLC. So pick a type you like, and really just there's plenty of resources out there. And if you love researching and love looking up certain cards, go. You can just do the research yourself, kind of like Magic. If you're used to building a commander deck, building a GLC deck is probably something that you will really enjoy.
Yes, and that's how I got the GLC. I actually loved Commander, and then I'm like, oh, let me do GLC, and I legitimately built my deck in like 2 hours, and I brought it to a tournament with like 5-0. I'm like, everyone's like, how long have you played the deck? Oh, I finished building it yesterday. What? Oh, I just love playing Commander, so I just use the same philosophy. So like, that's insane. I'm like, skills translate. That's all it is. Deck. These skills that we talk about, deck building, gameplay, all that stuff, that stuff translates from game over game. It isn't just a Pokemon only skill. So if you love Commander, definitely give GLC a look. I think you're going to enjoy the challenges of playing it, and hopefully you find a local shop that does encourage it as well.
Yeah, and then if you're looking on different skills on how to build decks, feel free to take a look at our past episodes. We just finished a deck building series on different topics associated with how to build a deck really well in the Pokemon TCG. So go ahead, listen to those episodes. I think they're great information. Granted, I'm a little biased. We said the information, but I've talked to some of my locals, including my professor, and they love this information, and he's highly suggesting it to newer players as well. So we are only one source. There's multiple out there, but we do provide that for y'all if you want to take a look at some of our older episodes. But on the topic of how to make decks for formats and for tournaments, let's see how people did this past weekend in Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, so over the weekend there was the regional in Atlanta, which is the first regional in Georgia in
Ever?
no, not ever. No, no. Athens used to host one. It's been almost 10 years since the last Georgia regional, which is a big deal for the state and a big deal for the Southeast. Atlanta's always been that city that everyone's like, why isn't there a regional in Atlanta? And it was because of local gambling laws that was always causing an issue. I don't know what's changed to cause and allow Atlanta to host, but good, it's good. Just shy of 2,700 Masters played in the tournament, and
which in itself is record breaking. One, it's the largest regional again for Pokemon, but I was looking at a table. This may have broken in the top 10 of TCG events ever across all TCGs.
That sounds right. The Southeast, especially Georgia, is a hotbed for TCG activity. When I used to live in northern Georgia, going through the circuit of Atlanta and North and South Carolina, it was a grind. Like I was playing against very high level players. Now, not saying that where we live now in Central Florida is any lesser quality. I moved from microwave, went to the oven. Grinding in northern Georgia to grinding in Central Florida, it is not. Both of those are not easy. So
it's just different people, because up where you used to live, you had Chip Ritchie, who is a famous commentator in the Pokemon. Yep. You have Grant Manley. Now you have a lot of top level senior players that live in the area. You have Caleb Rogerson in the Carolinas. Like, there the East Coast has a lot of people that do very well in this game, and then you move down to Florida, and we have just as many top level players.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the Southeast. This whether it's in Atlanta or Orlando, this has always been one of the bigger tournaments of the season, just because we have all those players in this area.
Yeah, population density definitely has helped with the attendance of both of these for sure. But really, I would say the biggest story for this tournament is what didn't happen, which is Journey Together.
Yeah.
Like the lack of impact from this set is actually quite shocking in my opinion.
Yeah, I was joking with you and a couple of my friends. It's like, did people forget rotation happen? Because if you look at the decks that made top cut, it was what 7 Dragapults,
Yeah.
2 Gardevoirs, 1 Goldango, and then the newcomer being Trapgos, which isn't really a newcomer. It's just it got better with rotation.
So it was a top 9. So there was one play-in match. And so out of the top 9, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Dragapults, 2 Guardies, 1 Terapagos, 1 Goldango. That was the top cut. Yep. And seeds 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 were all Dragapult. Like,
and to go further than that, 18 of the top 32 had some sort of Dragapult in their lists.
Yeah, so it definitely was one of those situations where it didn't feel like a big shift in the meta happened because none of these decks fell off. Like, I think realistically, Raging Bolt fell off the hardest, but Raging Bolt was already kind of falling off to begin with from several regionals prior.
Yeah, and it's weird because Raging Bolt actually made the graphic as one of the most popular decks in the room for day 1. And that conversion rate from day 1 and day 2 was so low. Like, it wasn't even on the graphic for day 2, but Gardevoir took its place instead.
Yeah, only 19 decks for Raging Bolt made day 2.
Out of 2,700.
Yeah.
Well, 2,700 Masters. We don't know how many people actually played it, and actually, we do know. We can look at
314 played it, 19 made day 2.
Yeah.
So the conversion ratio that's not a horrible conversion ratio, but in terms of Dragapult, 430 players played it, and 75 of those players made day 2. So
yeah,
I think that's more a product of volume than anything else.
I would say volume, and also if you look at the players that did well in day 2 with Dragapult, it was a lot of the top players that you see in this community. It's not like just random people that had a great showing, which some did. Like Dragapult's a great deck, but you see the top players play it and do well with it. For instance, Andrew Hedrick, one of the top players in North America, 2nd place with it. Abed Ahmed, I know not a lot of people recognize his name, but I've been seeing his name a lot in the top cuts. And then Sebastian Lashmet is making his way, being fairly known in the community now as well. And then you see like Grant Manley play with it. You see John Ang, Fabrizio Silva from Peru. You just see a bunch of the known players come up playing this deck, and that obviously affects the day 2 conversion rate as well.
Yeah, and it's one of those that goes back to a conversation we've had many times when it comes to regional analysis. It's a lot of players will not gamble at regionals because there's too much on the line. And Dragapult is so well established, and it's just honestly so good that it's a safe bet. And it's one of those, it goes back to last week's conversation, right? Where we said the best decks will automatically just win you. Like, the best deck, so in this case Dragapult, will win you 1 or 2 games just purely on its power alone. You can drive it into the ground and it's going to win you 2 games just because it's just better than everything else.
Yep.
And really, the next story to this tournament outside of Dragapult, I would say, is Gardevoir. and it has nothing to do with the final result of the finals. I think Gardevoir is reinventing itself quicker than everyone thought that it would.
Yeah, I know with rotation, everyone's like, oh, it's losing the refinement Curlia. That was the heart of the engine. That was the draw power. That's how I got all my stuff in the discard. That's how I was able to churn through my deck. And yes, only 2 made top cut, but those that made top cut did very well with it actually winning overall.
Yeah.
And looking at the first place list,
Mm-hmm.
other than one big difference, the list didn't change. Yes, you have to switch your Curlias, but the big difference I will say that made really the standout performance was the N Zoroark EX in the first place list.
Yeah.
And then this was played by 4 of the top players as well. So this is a testing group that decided, okay, we'll lose 1 refinement. Let's just replace refinement with trade and just see how that goes.
Yeah, and this is definitely my age as a player showing. Zoroark GX was busted. Trade is broken. Refinement is broken. This ability is broken and game changing. So everyone discounting this card definitely forgot about how good it was in the past. And all Gardevoir did was, okay, I already used this. Let me keep on using it. Like Gardevoir went cool and everyone forgot about it. Like everyone's like, oh, the refinement's so powerful. Well, you got refinement just in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not surprised that it won, especially with how much Dragapult's out there.
Mm-hmm.
Gardevoir is just a really good, I wouldn't say counter, but it sets up the damage when you need to. Since there's no bench barrier, you can knock out anything on the bench with it. Obviously, other than Dragapult EX. But even then's like you're just setting up the damage and you're drawing through your deck more efficiently. And then you have the do engine to item lock your Dragapult player while you're doing whatever you want. All around, it's just a really good deck. And the person that pilots it to first place is a Gardevoir master. Like this is his 3rd tournament he won with Gardevoir, and not just one overall. 3rd tournament he won this season.
Yeah, and that's a very impressive feat. Like what you were telling me, what only 3 other players have done that in a singular season?
Yeah, and all those players happened before the COVID pandemic. So he's the first one since COVID to achieve this feat.
Yeah, and that matters because it's more of an attendance thing, right? Like, over time, Pokemon regionals have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. So, I mean, it's still an accomplishment to win a regional. Still an accomplishment to make a top cut of a regional. I'm not discounting that by any way, shape, or form. But I think once you go, oh, I won a 2,700 tournament versus I won a 1,200 person tournament, you have to compare the numbers a little bit. So good on him. He's having a very, very successful year. He's having, honestly, one of the greatest runs that people have ever seen. I think the only other one that kind of would rival this from a recency bias would be Tord's year, where he went like 3 consecutive ICs. But that's like the only thing I can think of that's even coming close. So he's having a great year. The deck, he's just reinventing the deck every single time the format changes and adjusts. He isn't letting people's opinions of the deck dictate his choices. Honestly, I think he's doing the opposite. I think he is driving the conversation on how to look at the formats. And he is one of the lead drivers toward should I consider or should I be aware of Gardevoir. I think the inclusion of Lily's Clefairy EX is amazing, and it's so smart because it just makes it easier for you to KO Dragapults because it turns Dragapult's weakness to Psychic. And that's all that deck does as an attacker. Like, so why not? It makes perfect sense. And the full moon rando it just builds in itself. Like, you want to have a full bench in this deck anyway. And it just makes the most sense. It's just such smart practicing of this deck and crafting of this deck really is showed the skill of the player, the skill of the architect, and then the knowledge of the metagame. It goes back like we talked about again last week, meta analysis. We were talking about how to rogue the meta. He was just figuring out how to beat the meta because he wants to be a driver of the meta, and he's done so very well all year.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see how obviously how it does his worlds, because he has 3 ways of getting the worlds at this point. Now 4, because he's actually the ranked number 1 in CP for the U.S. and Canadian region. So he's definitely going to worlds. There's no doubt about that. So I can't wait what he decides to do later this year. There's 2 more regionals in North America, and obviously there's NAIC. So I'm sure he'll be attending NAIC, being one of the top rated players in our region right now.
I would say he's going to have his trip to NAIC paid for, so he is definitely going to go.
Yeah. So we'll see how he drives the meta going forward in the next couple tournaments. If he does attend, honestly, he can take a break right now, chill, look at NAIC, and just prepare for that. And even if he doesn't go to NAIC, he is good. He got his Worlds invite, so kudos to him. Henry Chow is doing great this season. So, speaking of NAIC, just real quick, the registration date dropped today. It really just shadow dropped. I was looking on the website, and I saw information about NAIC. I'm like, ooh, I've been looking for this for a while.
Yeah, and it's always good to throw dates out there, especially for a lot of players. NAIC historically has always had an issue with people registering for it because it's such a high demand tournament. It being in probably the most populous region outside of Japan. So it does become very, very hard to even just get into the tournament. So the registration for the tournament is going to be in 2 different waves. So wave 1 will be April 22nd at 7 p.m. Central Time. And then wave 2 is going to be on the 23rd at 9 a.m. Central Time. So if you're interested in attending this event, please mark your calendar for that. It has a registration deadline of June 8th, but I really don't think that's going to matter. I think this event's going to cap out.
It's going to sell out within minutes. So if you're interested in going, I will have your RK9 account ready to go 15 minutes beforehand, and you are just sitting at your computer waiting for the hour hand to hit even, and then just refreshing your page. This is very difficult to get into. I remember playing at a challenge last year, and we actually paused the challenge so the players can register for NAIC, and only half the people got in.
Yeah.
So it's that demanding, it's that popular. So if you want to go, please put on your calendars. I know I'm doing that. I'm interested in going to NAIC, so I'm going to try to register, and if I don't get in, oh well, I'll just enjoy it from home. From what I've heard, the ICs are fantastic. They're a very fun event to attend, whether you're a player or a spectator. So be on the lookout for that if you are interested in going.
Yeah. So with that out of the way, the next tournament is actually this upcoming weekend on the 19th, and it's in Monterrey, Mexico. So that is going to be something that North American players and even some other players from Latin America are going to be looking at. So I'm going to be very intrigued to see, 1, the attendance, but 2, the meta shifts that will react to the results we got from Atlanta. The next United States-based regional is not until May 3rd. That's going to be in Milwaukee. So plenty of time for players to react to the meta and kind of shift from there. So definitely interested in see what's going to happen. But with that being said, I think we should shift to our main topic today. And I think really just talking about Atlanta and talking about how this Gardevoir adjusted and redefined itself is a really good example of what we want to talk about today.
Yeah, so last week we talked about the meta analysis and trying to figure out, okay, what do I expect, and then what deck should I select for an event like that. So we're going to take it to the next step. So hypothetically, we picked our deck.
Mhm.
Now what? What do I do? So we're going to be talking about play testings.
So wait, we're
So-
going to talk about practice?
Yeah, we're going to talk about practice.
Not a game. Not a game. Practice.
Well, that's the good thing about TCG. Your practices are games. Ha! See what
Look.
I did there?
Look,
Huh?
I had to throw in the AI reference somehow.
I
Alan
know.
Iverson's rant. I had to throw it in there all week. But no, I think playtesting is super important. I think with playtesting, you and I even have a different philosophy how we playtest. We have different ways we go about playtesting. So, Dean, what is your when you pick up a deck and you're just getting ready to understand the deck, let alone let's not talk about tournament play yet. What's the first thing you want to accomplish when you pick up the deck and you start playtesting?
So when I play test and I'm picking up a new deck, which I'm actually in the process of doing that right now, my goal is what does this deck do and how do I achieve the purpose of the deck well. So what I do is I just pick, say I'm interested in Lycanroc. I know that's been a very popular deck with this channel. And I just play as many games as I can. Firstly, just so I can familiarize myself with the deck list, what cards are in there, with the card interactions, and trying to figure out, okay, this is the goal of the deck. How do I achieve that goal, and how can I do it more consistently and like better and better until it's more or less second nature for me. That way, I'm not thinking about, I'm not worrying about the cards or the number I have in cards in my deck versus what's in my discard versus what's in my prizes. I know how the deck runs.
Yeah, for me is I always try to make sure proof of concept exists. So if I'm picking up a deck and I built my deck, my first 5 or so matches, I want to make sure proof of concept is accurate. Is the deck running the way I want it to run? And so I mostly just do solitaire matches. I do a lot of solitaire hands when it comes to that to see how it flows for those first 5 kind of playthroughs and make hypothetical situations. All right, it's been turn 3, we knock out my active. Let me promote. Let me kind of I'm going to force myself to squirm sometimes, but I want to make sure that what I'm doing can be achieved. Because if the deck can't run, I need to go back and adjust it before I even get further into other aspects of playtesting I want. To me, proof of concept is always the first thing I always want to test out. And if it's not there, I need to kind of twitch it up and kind of fix it up so I can get my number one goal on my game, on what I want to accomplish by learning the deck.
Exactly, and I think proof of concept is very important. Not necessarily saying if it doesn't work, ditch the deck altogether, but it's important to ask yourself, okay, I'm trying to prove the concept of the deck. What's holding it back? Why is it not working? And I know in our community we have a deck building channel, and people are like, here's my list, give me your advice. What cards should I switch out? And once in a while I'll ask, I'm like, how does the deck feel to you? What are the weaknesses that you are seeing? Don't let us just look at it. You're the one playing the deck. You're play testing. Tell us how you're feeling. And then from that's when we can offer advice, suggestions, like, okay, you are missing a draw. So, okay, how can we increase your draw in there and your draw engine? Okay, you feel like it's too slow. How can we increase getting your board set up quicker? And that's what one function of playtesting is, like you said, proof of concept, and how can we increase or improve that proof of concept to where we're enjoying playing the deck in other games.
Yeah, so after I kind of get a feel of how the deck's running, the deck is running the way I want to run them, executing my strategy, right? Then you start critiquing how you're executing that strategy. Like you said, am I going too slow? Am I not doing enough damage quick enough? Am I not setting up? Am I struggling with draw support? Am I struggling to get energy? Like you kind of identify the weaknesses of your 60, and then you want to make sure that those weaknesses are actually reappearing itself over and over again. You don't want to be like, oh, I can't draw, but that was only one of your 10 games. You want to make sure that your weakness is actually a consistent weakness before you start tweaking. And that's, I
Exactly.
think that's what a lot of people fall into when it comes to playtesting is they identify one game as all the sample size they need and they make a change and then they go again and now the deck's running completely different than it did before. Like it's completely, the identity's been completely shifted because it wasn't given enough sample to understand if that was just a one-off scenario or is that an actual weakness of the deck.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and I always advise people try at least 5 games, and then after that, then make some adjustments and go from there. As you mentioned, like one game is not a good sample size because remember, we're playing a game that is lucky, that is full of chance. It's based on the draw you have, it's based how you shuffle, it's based what's in your prize cards. It's we don't have access to the same 40 54 cards every single game
mhm.
because of the prizing and how you draw. Like your hand and deck is never the same.
Yeah, this game's about variance, and the whole idea of getting to be successful is managing the variance and limiting the variance. So,
Exactly.
so after I identify my weakness, then you go back, you take a half step back, right? All right, I can't. I'm having a draw issue. I can't get enough cards in my hand quick enough. How do you adjust that? How many do you drop your maybe a consistency item card for another supporter? How do and you kind of just run hypotheticals, and that's where understanding the card pool is really going to matter but also just understanding what are staples in the card pool will matter and kind of help you get to a quicker answer. Because if you're running 3 Iono, would a fourth one be enough? Or would you need a Sycamore? Or would you need an Arven for consistency, which can combo out? Like you just have to look at your list, see what your counts are, and then kind of play around with it. First, to me, the easiest answer is always looking at your supporter pool. That's always the first thing I go to when I need to make a slight adjustment. And then I start going to my items, and then I start going to my Pokemon and my energy. Because I really
Mm-hmm.
don't want to touch my energy. I'm very big on energy curve, and I want to make sure that the energy curve stays relatively the same. I don't want to cut it unless I absolutely have to.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, but now, say we've practiced about 20 games, Dean. Say we have an idea of our deck. We kind of feel a little more comfortable with your deck. What's the next stage for you in terms of getting ready for maybe a league night or a challenge or a cup? What are you looking at next?
So one thing that I've been personally trying to increase and improve with my gameplay is different skills when it comes to playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
So two things that come to mind for me are practicing your pace of play and then also practicing price checking. Especially now since we lost Hisuian Heavy Ball,
Mm-hmm.
price checking is a little more important so you know what you're playing with. So when you play, you can. I've talked to some of my friends, and an exercise that they've done during their playtesting session is that they'll get ready, set up their hand, and then they will wait till they have a deck search option, and then they'll play like the Nest Ball or Buddy-Buddy Poffin, whatever it may be, search through their deck, and they write down what they think their 6 prize cards are. And then after they do that, they flip over the prizes and see how accurate they are.
Yeah.
So that's one function of playtesting is increasing skills like price checking.
Yeah. To me, I will be 100% honest. Price checking has always been a weak spot in my game. I am a more of a reactionary player. So when I'm doing my first maybe 1 to 2 searches, I'm looking for some key pieces. And if I'm missing a card, then I'm like, okay, that's in the prizes. But I'm not trying to figure out what my 6 prizes are. I will admit that's a weakness to my game. But I also run that way because I know even if I know my 6 prizes, I never know when I'm going to get them. And it's one
Mm-hmm.
of those situations where I rather just react to the way the game is going and what my deck gives me than try to fish the resources I'm desperate for out of the prizes. But that's me. That's how I am. That's probably honestly my fatal flaw as a player. And I definitely do not encourage that mindset and play style when it comes to playing because I think it definitely makes me just make riskier plays. And sometimes I go, oh crap, it's prized. 20 turns into a match. Like I shouldn't be making that mistake. So I definitely do agree with the prize checking pieces. I think that's super, super important. Um, to me, on top of pace of play, is familiarity with your mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are playing the game, you are the master of your deck. It is your job to maintain the board state involving the mechanics of your deck. Not your opponent's, it's your job. So if you are playing a mechanic that is interactive with your opponent in some way, shape, or form, it is your job to master how that interactions happen and how you can make sure that your opponent does not misplay or break game state because of that. So mastering your deck, mastering your board state, and then mastering how your board state affects your opponent is something you have to do in playtesting. Because you have to tell your opponent what is happening instead of your opponent figuring it out.
Exactly. Yeah. And one cool thing with playtesting is that do it with a friend, do it with someone that you trust. And if you see like oh man, I messed up a certain mechanic, you can ask, can I take this back? Learn from your mistake, and then try to find a way to fix it or do a better play. So learning your deck, and there are a lot of mechanics and a lot of interactions in this game that we don't even think of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's one of those situations when it comes to playtesting. To me, like I'm using you have to understand the game state is very intentional, because Dean, like you love playing cloth, you love the poison mechanic, you love taking advantage of that poison mechanic. So as a cloth player or as a poison player now with Archilodon Poison is a common archetype right now, you have to be able to understand what your deck is doing. So you're getting KO, it's getting KO during checkup, and your opponent wants to try to Fezandipiti. Well, you have to make sure you catch that because as the player who is manipulating that game state, you have to make sure your opponent doesn't misplay. And I am very big, I'm a former judge just like you are, that mistake is not the player making a mistake. That is both players' responsibility. Honestly, I even tell the poison player, you should get I have always told players, you should have gotten a harsher warning because you allowed that to happen. Your opponent did it, but you allowed it to happen.
Yeah, and that's a separate conversation, maybe for another episode. But yes, I totally agree with you. As someone that plays with weird mechanics, aka I love the poison package. You mentioned the Archilodon poison deck. That is something I'm actually practicing with for competitive play because I'm super familiar with that, and I watch out when I play because one, I don't want to break game state and let my opponent do something where they weren't supposed to because one, we have integrity as players, so we need to keep the integrity, even if it's to our advantage, even if we want to see that penalty, we need to say no. I need to make sure you're playing properly the whole entire time, and I created this mechanic on the board, so I need to make sure you don't fall into easy penalties for that. And that happened all the time when I was playing that deck. I had to make sure, oh no, you can't unfair stamp me because you weren't knocked out during the last turn, you were knocked out during checkup. Oh no, you can't Fezandipiti. Oh no, you can't do this. Like it's not out of me being mean, but I want to make sure my opponent was playing the game how they're supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And that came with hours of understanding this mechanic, from trying this deck out, failing with this deck, and playing in a lot of games with my friends online in local tournaments. Like my playtesting was help me understand not just the deck itself, but how it can affect my opponent's board state as well.
Exactly, and that's important, especially when we want to get ready for these bigger tournaments like challenges and cups, where the pace of play, the management of the game state, all of that matters in a timed setting. So all that play testing is getting you ready. So when it's in the moment of, okay, this matters because there's something on the line, you are being the best you. You're being the best pilot of the deck, but you're also being the best steward of the game because then you are making sure that you are managing what you can manage. Now, not saying all because you played the deck 100 times, you're going to prevent misplays. Absolutely not. Perfect practice makes perfect, but it takes time to figure out what perfection is. But
even if you watch the streams for the regionals, there's misplays and things that happen out of sorts all the time on stream.
Yes.
And it just happens. We're human. We play too fast or we miss something. As we mentioned earlier, there's a lot of mechanics and a lot of interactions going on in that game, and it's easy to not see something right away.
Yeah. And then for me, I do a weird play test that helped me become a better player. Is I don't play test the deck I want to play. I play test the decks I expect to see. And that is something super weird for me. I was very fortunate to have a collection of decks at my disposal of my friends and just my collection at the time when I was more a competitive player. And then also my online account was very robust at the time. So I was able to understand how the other decks operated, and I understood the moves they wanted to make. So when I was piling a deck, I was in kind of the forecasting prediction realm of what should I be expecting turn over turn from my opponent, because I understood what they were trying to do against me.
Exactly, and I think that's a very smart way of playtesting as well. I remember when I was selected to do the Orlando Regional last season, and one thing they actually recommended to us was play every deck you expect to see on the day of competition. Because as a judge, as a professor, we need to know how these decks run, what plays the players are trying to make, what mindset they are in. So when we make a call, we understand what happened. We're not thinking like, okay, what is this deck? What does it do? And we already know what this deck's doing. We can make a call quicker. And we can transfer that skill to being a competitive player, or even just being someone that just wants to play the game like just casually. Because if you know what your opponent's going to do, how you make your decision is better. And the best way to know what your opponent's going to do is by having a close understanding of the deck yourself. And to do that is just play the deck yourself.
Yeah. And sometimes like you'll see our rogue deck videos. Sometimes we end up playing the same decks over and over again. It's like you'll hear us say, okay, we're expecting our opponent to do X, we're expecting our opponent to do Y. And there's a general flow of what is expected, and there's sometimes a combination of plays that you're like, all right, this is not expected, but it's plausible. And then we, as players, you kind of have to react to the plausibility more than the expected results. But at the end of the day, I think when you're play testing, when you're practicing, and you're just kind of going through those motions on both the deck you want to master versus the decks you expect to try to overcome, knowing both sides of the board is very, very good, because I think it just makes you a better player.
Yeah, I absolutely agree to that. It does. One, it helps you understand your deck and how to go against that player. But two, it helps you kind of read what your opponent's going to do. And if you look at some of our past showcase videos, where we will say, "Oh, our opponent's going to do X, Y, Z," and they do it, and it's not just because like we can read their minds. It's more we understand what those decks do, so we know what they're about to do, and we can better prepare ourselves for the next turn, because we're not trying to create a game plan on the fly, but we're already trying to figure out that game plan during our opponent's turn.
Mm-hmm. And the last piece before we go over to the deck of the week, because I think this last point transitions to the deck of the week pretty well, is sometimes when you play test a deck, the lines seem obvious. But when it comes to execution, that's where the sequencing comes into play. And you have to be able to understand that sequencing. And playtesting is where you can make those mistakes. It's where you can make those, you can go into all right, this game I'm going to be hyper aggressive. I'm going to see what I can get burned on. This time I'm going to be a little slower. I'm going to be a little methodical. I'm going to see if I can build it up a lot more slowly. And then that way you kind of figure out the extremes of the deck. That way you know what the middle really is. And honestly, I'm still in that phase right now, as of time of recording, on the deck of the week right now. I'm still trying to figure out where that sweet spot is when it comes to me playing this deck.
Yeah, and I will say this is not I wouldn't say it's a beginner deck at all, because as you mentioned, when you play test, that's where you develop the sequencing and the lines of play, and really the gameplay of a deck. And with this with this week's Rogue Deck of the Week, I wouldn't say it's not an advanced deck, but it's not a beginner deck. It's like in the middle. So if you're looking for a challenge, if you're looking for maybe use this week as your way to practice playtesting properly, playtesting the way that you want to playtest, this week's Rogue Deck of the Week is a great way to do that.
Yes, so this week's Rogue Deck of the Week is Mamoswine, but we put a little spin on it, and I'm not even going to say that we created this spin. You and I were talking about Mamoswine, and I was kind of in the deck building phase about a week and a half ago from the time of recording, and you shot me this list that had a Garchomp EX, and I went, oh my god, yes. Because it just made sense to me. I looked at a card, because I know we looked at this card a couple weeks ago on the podcast, and I went, oh my gosh, this card is super underrated, it's super undervalued, it brings a lot of value to this deck, and I loved it, and I didn't want to change the list because I thought it was a really, really good list. Now, I'm at, like I said, middle of playtesting, and I'm like, still trying to figure out if this fits my play style, but I really do like it. Mamoswine is a Stage 2 card that came from Journey Together. It's 340 HP fighting type Pokemon that has an ability and an attack. Its ability states, and I'm kind of doing a quick paraphrase, that once during your turn, you may search your deck for a Pokemon, reveal that Pokemon, put it in your hand, shuffle your deck afterwards. And then it has an attack for 2 fighting energy that is 180 base, and then does 40 more damage for every Stage 2 into play on your bench. So it can do really big chunks of damage. Like in playtesting right now, I experiment to see what my damage cap is. It's 350 in most scenarios. But it can get rolling quickly, but the biggest downside of this deck, it relies on Stage 2s. So it is very hard to get that up and running.
Yeah, and you saw when I played this on the live stream, I was very hyped on this deck, honestly. When this was first announced, I'm like, oh, this is really cool. I did the math. I'm like, you can one-shot with 3 Stage 2s in play. It doesn't take long. I actually saw this list on a live stream last week with Tricky Jim, Andrew Mahone. He also does their standard event. And this player brought Mamoswine. It was a little different than our list, but he was going against Charizard EX. Well, one of the main problems going against Charizard is that it is so bulky. It's really hard to one-shot it. That Mamoswine player was like, okay, bro, hold my drink. Did his thing and was doing 350 by turn 3. And would not let the Charizard player do anything because the Charizard player is not one-shotting a 340 HP Pokemon. He's doing the KO back, and he just had game really quick.
Yeah, and I do love this deck. I think it's really, really fun. It's challenging me as a player. Like you said, I think it's a high skill floor and a high skill ceiling deck. It can definitely give you really good results. Unfortunately, it did not show that way during Atlanta. Only one person in Atlanta day 2 with Mamoswine. But I think it's more of, I think we're going to see more of this deck in the future because it's just going to take longer for some players to really be able to master its full capabilities. With this deck, it took me about 5 matches to really understand what it means to set up this deck in an efficient way. And you and I were talking before stream because I was talking to you about my play testing and kind of the struggles I'm grappling with right now. And you're like, yeah, you have to do this, this, and this. I said, I understand that's what I'm supposed to do. It's a lot harder to execute sometimes, and this deck really does show those struggles. But it is very rewarding when you're able to pull it off.
Yeah, it does play a lot of Pokemon because you're getting all those Stage 2s out, and you can't just rely on Rare Candy anymore.
Yeah.
Because of TM Devolution. So you're forced to play the Stage 1s, evolve all the way up. And I will also say with our list and a lot of the other Mamoswine lists, the A-Spec of choice is not Grand Tree. It's actually Trolley because you really need to get that setup going. So ideally, turn 1, you want to get the Arven, Trolley, TM Evolution, get an energy into play, and then evolve to your bench Pokemon to a Stage 1s. That way, you're starting your next turn, you can start getting the Mamoswine in play, or you can start getting the Pidgeot EX in play, get your board going to where you have at least 3 Stage 2s, and you're attacking for at least, 270 at that point? And one-shotting most of the decks in format.
Yeah, it's like 260, 270. It's 180 plus whatever, how many others. So it can do damage, and if you do it quick enough, you don't even have to hit the 240s, 270s right away. You can kind of slowly build that up because you're going a little faster than your opponent. Um,
Hmm.
I think the play of Pidgey to Pidgeotto turn 1 is actually even more important now with the prevalence of Dragon Pulp. Pidgey is 50 HP, Pidgeotto is not.
Hmm.
Swinub is 70 HP, so it's safe for a turn. The Torchic is 70 HP, so it's safe for a turn. But you have 50 HP Pidgeys that you have to protect, and I think the TM Evo play is the best way to protect those.
Exactly. So I played it on the live stream. You can go check out our live stream video. Hopefully, you all will have a better experience than what I did on the live stream with it. But it is a fun deck, as Devin mentioned. As once you get everything set up and you're hitting hard with a very tanky Pokemon, it just feels good. You probably will see maybe one player at your locals playing this. So I wouldn't say it's going to be a very popular deck choice, but it is one of the decks that a lot of people were looking forward to once this set was released.
Yeah. So I would say obviously the deck video for the showcase will be live on YouTube on Friday at noon. I'm working on it now. I can't tell you how the matches are going yet. I've yet to record those at the time of recording, but I'm definitely wanting to use this playtesting conversation to show that even with us as people who really do love the TCG, there is still learning curves for us, and sometimes I'm not even like, oh yeah, the deck video is ready. No, I have no idea. I'm still learning the deck. I've been grappling with it for 2.5 days now. Sometimes it
Mm-hmm.
just takes time to master and just not even master, but really understand what's in your hand.
Yeah, and like we said, it's a very clunky deck, or it can be a very clunky deck. So it's just learning how to deal with the hands you're giving, and also dealing with a kind of fast format where it has slowed down a little bit. But for stage twos, we need that time to set up.
Mm-hmm.
So, like we said, we'll have the video out on Friday, so be on the lookout for that. But other than that, you have any last words for our listeners this week?
No, I think we had a really good point, and we touched on a lot of important factors of playtesting and just all the ways that playtesting can expand to your game and how you can use playtesting to your advantage as well as a player. And hopefully, you get to have fun with your decks. You get to really tweak those decks to be the most optimized list possible. And the only way to do that is through playtesting. It's just the best way possible.
I completely agree. And I think one last reason to playtest, and we didn't really touch upon this. For me, I playtest because it's a great way for me to hang out with my friends and have a good time.
Mm-hmm.
I did that yesterday at the time of recording. Me and my buddies were like, hey, let's go to our local card shop and let's just play some new decks. And it was a way for us to hang out, playing some decks that we haven't really played before. We're sharing decks and talking through our strategies. And it was just a nice, fun time with my friends. And ultimately, that's what this game is about. Enjoying your time with your friends and enjoying playing the game.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree on that.
So, thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Rogue Deck Chronicles. Remember, like this episode, to subscribe to our channel. Remember, we're doing the 100 subscriber challenge. Once we hit 100 subscribers, we'll schedule a special live stream featuring some of our rogue decks, and we'll face those off against each other. So please do that. Tell your friends. Tell everyone about us. We will love to do that for y'all. But with all that being said, once again, thank you for listening to the Rogue Deck Chronicles, and have fun playing those sneaky decks.
Bye, guys.